and I'll be putting the tariff of 25% on Canada. Those tariffs may or may not rise with time. That's coming on the 1st, Saturday.
So it looks like tariffs are finally here. As you heard from Trump, starting today, Saturday, we are going to be getting hit with 25% tariffs on our goods. And he also put 10% tariffs on our oil, which not as bad, but I'm sure we're still going to feel it. And we also have an update to the candidacy for the leadership of the Liberal Party, with Jaime Batiste dropping out. Now, he quickly put his support behind Mark Carney, and we saw that yesterday because Carney had an announcement in the Atlantic regions. He was there with Sean Fraser, amongst some other Liberal MPs, and that's kind of what I wanted to break down today. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Now, well, President Trump and some Americans may be turning back the clock on climate action. As Sean Fraser just indicated, we're picking up the pace. We're here today to address, in effect, three major issues that are wrapped into one big one. First, how to help hardworking families to finally get ahead. Secondly, how to boost the competitiveness of Canadian companies. And thirdly, how to build the strongest economy in the G7. All of these issues, each of these issues, is affected by how we as Canadians play our part in addressing climate change. Now, when Pierre Poilievre says we have to choose between fighting climate change and growing our economy, he's lying to us. So here's how our new plan works. My government will immediately remove the consumer carbon tax. But we won't stop there. Instead, what we'll do is create a system of incentives to reward Canadians for making greener choices. So it means that you'll no longer have to pay more to fuel your car or heat your home. But when you choose an energy-efficient appliance or an electric car or home insulation, you will be rewarded, and we will get the big polluters to pay for it.
Removing the consumer carbon tax. I wonder where the Liberals got that idea. Couldn't be from the Conservatives yet again, taking something that they've talked about. No, it can't be that. But if you listen to the rest of what Mark's talking about, they want to change your habits. This is pure WEF speak, and they've mentioned this many, many times. They say the World Economic Forum promotes various incentives to encourage individuals to change their habits towards more sustainable and healthy lifestyles, often focusing on rewards like personalized feedback, access to exclusive communities, discounts on eco-friendly products, gamification elements, and recognition programs that incentivize positive behavior changes related to areas like energy consumption, your diet, all those crickets we're going to be eating, transportation, where most things are going to be automated. We're not going to have any cars because we won't own anything, and waste reduction. Now, I'm sure Mark's going to come later on, once he becomes prime minister, with more of these into his policies. But for now, he's just saying he's going to remove the consumer carbon tax, increase the industrial portion of it. But not only that, he's talking about now incentivizing people to buy greener or change fixtures in your house and all that kind of stuff. So just be aware of where he's getting all these ideas. Let's continue.
Let me be clear. If we were only to remove the carbon tax, we'd create two problems. First, Canada's emissions would not decrease as rapidly as before. And secondly, most Canadian households would be worse off because of the end of the rebate.
Well, first off, I would say that people are probably worse off with the rebate because they're putting more into the carbon tax than they're getting back. But you're also only getting that 4 times a year. And that rebate maybe covers one grocery shop for a family, if even that. So is it worth it in the end? But also, you've had plenty of Liberals, as well as Stephen Guilbeault, say that the consumer carbon tax only accounts for 10% of the emissions reduction. So how much are you really slowing down by if you remove it? If the industrial side of the carbon tax is far more effective, why would you be focusing so much on the consumer as well? Like, make it make sense to me.
Pierre Poilievre's, with his simplistic and misleading axe the tax, doesn't care about either problem. Now, that's possible because he doesn't really believe in climate change. Or it's possible he thinks that Canada, for the first time in our history, should be a free rider on a massive global problem, leaving for other countries to solve.
Now, Pierre's actually never made the statement that he doesn't believe that climate change is a thing. He simply said that we could be doing more with our resources and spreading it worldwide to help reduce emissions that way, because we are such a small player in the world's emissions. But with our own resources, we could help bring down the big polluters like India, like China, who are still using coal, like Japan, who's asked us to help us with oil and gas and energy. And you don't have to take my word for it. I mean, we could just look at the charts. This is off of Canada.ca's website, the Canadian government's website. If we're looking at carbon emitted from the top, top 10 emitting countries, look where we're at. We're all the way down here. And if you look at the actual bar graph, 2005, we were polluting more, and we've only reduced it by a sliver since 2021 stats or data. Now, China has been increasing it drastically. The US has gone down a little bit. India has increased. Russia has increased. Brazil, Japan has gone down a little bit. But all of these places are still bigger than us. And even if we look at the Climate Change Performance Index website, we're the ones who have this climate policy, the only one in North America from the US and Mexico, yet we are ranked lower than them. We are ranked 62. The US is ranked 57, but they pollute far more than us, or they emit that much more greenhouse gases or carbon, whatever you want to call it. We're the ones with the policies. We're the ones with the carbon tax, and we are still 62. US is 57, Mexico is ranked 39, but guess what? Compared to the other places, Russia's 64. We're not that far from Russia, and China is even doing better than us at 55. So Mark's talking about us freeloading or having a free ride while the other countries do better. We ourselves aren't even doing anything with the policies that we have currently. So why are we focusing on this so much? Like, this guy just doesn't make any sense. But Mark seems to also think that Pierre doesn't understand how important this rebate money is to Canadians, and that's why he wants to just axe the tax. He doesn't know what kind of harm it will cause.
It's certainly clear that he doesn't really understand how important that money in the rebate is to hardworking families across the country. But we get it. We care. And that's why our plan will directly solve both problems by both implementing new climate policies that are at least as effective in lowering emissions and by bringing forward new economic measures that will make Canadian families better off.
Now, I find it interesting that he says Pierre doesn't understand the benefits that families receive from the rebate, but is he not here announcing that he's going to be cutting the consumer carbon tax, which provides those very families with the rebate? Like, Mark, do you understand how that doesn't make any sense? Although it is clear that Pierre knows a lot more than Carney thinks, because if you just listen to what Carney said, the way that they're going to be doing this is by implementing new climate policies that are at least as effective, meaning that they could be worse off than what we are currently dealing with in the aspect of the carbon tax. And this is something that Pierre's been talking about for weeks, if not months now. And he even put out a video today where he reiterated this, but explained a new method called shadow carbon taxing.
Just as I predicted, today, Mark Carney announced that he will pause Trudeau's carbon tax until after the election and then bring in a much bigger tax that has no rebate. Mr. Carney has been Justin Trudeau's economic growth advisor, who's been saying for years that not only does he support a consumer carbon tax, but that he thinks the tax must be much higher. Now, before I get into the details, let me address a little tax trick that he has planned. It's kind of clever. He's announced that he will pause the carbon tax for a few months right before the election to trick people into re-electing the Liberals. After the election, he will bring in a much bigger carbon tax when he no longer needs your vote, but still needs your money. He has said that this bigger carbon tax will only apply to businesses. Well, that's how it is now. When you fill up your tank today, there's no CRA tax collector standing there waiting to collect it from you. It applies on the wholesale industry, which passes it on to the retail vendor, who pass it on to you. Now, that is what he will do again, only this time it will be a much bigger tax, and he has admitted there will be no rebate to pay you back the cost. He has called it a shadow carbon tax. Listen in.
We need to use effectively a shadow carbon price.
Now, I wanted to understand a little bit more what this shadow carbon pricing actually was. And I found a great video, which I'll leave in the description below. It's only about 4 minutes long, so it's a good watch. But essentially, the spark notes are, say a company wants to implement some sort of green project, but the benefits don't outweigh the cost. So it wouldn't be approved. But through the shadow carbon pricing, they can inflate the benefits by saying, if we install 10,000 electric car chargers in the city, then we'll be reducing this many gas-powered vehicles on the road. So then it gets green lit. But the costs then get transferred over to you through your energy bills, or maybe a tax from the city saying, oh, because the infrastructure's changed, now you got to be paying more. And this is something that Carney might be looking to implement with these new climate policies that he's talking about. So not a good look. But as we move over to a question from one of the reporters, Carney seems to think that we are too stupid to understand the benefits of a consumer carbon tax, which is another reason that he's removing it. Take a look.
Hi, Mr. Carney. My name's Lindsay Jones. I'm with the Globe and Mail. And my question is, in the past, you've supported the carbon tax and defended Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's stance on the carbon tax. Why now? Why are you, coming out with this now?
Well, I think there's two things, Lindsay. One is that, and that's right, and it's worked. It has had some impact in terms of reducing our emissions, making things more efficient. But as I said in my remarks, and I think certainly colleagues would know and people would know, it has become very divisive for Canadians. It's the perceptions of the impact, the negative impacts of the carbon tax on households without fully recognizing the positive impacts of the rebate has made this more of a divisive issue. It's been fed by misinformation and lies, quite frankly, by the Leader of the Opposition, but okay.
Can you believe it, folks? We are just too stupid to understand the benefits of the carbon tax because we've all been misled by Pierre Poilievre. Like, Carney is such a smug idiot that's his view on it. If he believes that there's such a benefit to the carbon tax, then why is he scrapping it? He shouldn't be scrapping it. Stick to your guns. Stay with your policy. But it's a bad policy, and people understand now that it's a bad policy. And we even have the former Liberal MP, Dan Matteague, which I'm sure a lot of you come to know through Northern Perspective. But last year, he was on a show where he was talking about the scam that the carbon tax is, and saying the same thing that Pierre says, that we should be implementing new policies in order to expand our energy and our resources to other places in the world like China, but that this carbon tax is a cascading effect. It's not just at the farmer. There is a chain that always ends with the consumer, us. Take a look.
So Dan, farmers are going to pay at least $150,000 on average for carbon tax if we look at every stage of that carbon tax is applied to, right? So we've got it at the farm. We got a transportation to be processed. We got it at the processor. We have the transportation to the wholesaler, and then on and on. Talk to us a bit about, is that the $150,000 almost seems like that number's not reasonable?
That number is reasonable, but it's cascaded now through the economy, and at every point it's added onto it. So the processor uses natural gas, the farmer who has to use propane or natural gas to dry their grain, to the shipment costs, to the rail costs. I'm not sure what it takes for people to understand, but when you put an artificial increase in the price at one level, it naturally and inevitably leads to all other levels. If we are looking at inflation in this country, as the Bank of Canada is, and saying it can't go above 2%, well, you have to only look at 14 cents and $1.50 a liter is more than 2%. So the inflation is endemic. It's inculcated in the system. It means that we will continue to have inflation that the Bank of Canada is only willing to meet with even higher interest rates. There is nothing good or consequential about what we're doing. And if the Minister of Finance is so concerned as her liberal colleagues on climate change, then for all these taxes, we still continue to see a rise in emissions. If in fact that's the concern that they have, I would suggest that maybe they want to go back to the drawing board and start looking at the importance of making sure that clean Canadian energy gets to the rest of the world, including China, which of course the federal government has done its utmost to prevent with the blocking of pipelines.
Well, and I think it's fair to say if we could get China on some of our LNG.
So I just find it rich that Mark is standing up there saying like people are misled and that's why they don't understand the carbon tax, when all of the liberals now are backtracking off of the carbon tax. He himself says he's getting rid of it. Freeland also said they're getting rid of it. Guilbeault has now said, oh yeah, it might not be the best thing. We can look at other ways of doing it. But it's only because we don't understand the benefits. But anyways, I'd love to hear what you guys think. Maybe you do see the benefits. Let me know in the comment section below if you've seen a benefit to paying the carbon tax, if that rebate check has really helped you and your family out. And as always, I will catch you guys on the next one. Thanks so much.